So the first wine that we are drinking is the 2018 Chateau Ducasse. It's called a Bordeaux Blanc. It's from the Bordeaux region of France. And if you look on the bottom right-hand side, there's just kind of a general map of France, and Bordeaux is on the southwestern side right here. And I actually got to visit Bordeaux last year for the first time. It was really, really interesting. So if you guys ever want any more in-depth information on Bordeaux, I've got some fun stuff for you. But this wine in particular is a very classic blend of a white Bordeaux. And the reason why I chose this is most people, when they think of Bordeaux, they think of reds, because it is definitely known for red wine. But Bordeaux makes some phenomenal whites. They also, most people think of white Bordeaux as sweet because of their region of Sauternes. And they make really, really great dessert wine in Bordeaux, but they also make very zippy, fresh whites, classically with a blend of Semillon, Sauvignon Blanc, and Muscadel. There's no oak on this wine. It's aged for 6 months in stainless steel. And just some little tasting notes that I get from this wine, and I'd love to hear from you guys on what you're tasting and smelling, but I get aromas of lemon, peach, and a little bit of like kind of subtle white flowers. And then similar on the palate, flavors of nectarine, lemon curd, lime zest, and a little bit of like kind of like a pepperiness. Classic food pairing. I hate it when like the back of a wine label, or when somebody gives you food pairing suggestions and they're like, there's so many wine bottles, it's like pairs well with meats, cheeses, fish, poultry, red meat. And I'm like, okay, so everything. And although this wine is versatile, I do like to give something really specific to think about when you're drinking it. So I would love to have this with pan-seared swordfish with a lemon butter sauce. And I don't know, there we go. So while you guys are tasting, the best way to taste is to give the wine a little bit of a swirl just to open it up. So you can swirl it in your glass. Stick your nose in the glass to take like a good smell, and keep your mouth open while you're smelling, and breathe in and then out. And that helps you smell more. And obviously the more you can smell, the more complex the taste is going to be. So Bordeaux, this is a very classic picture of Bordeaux. You've got the Gironde estuary here that runs in between and divides Bordeaux in half. And then this is what a typical chateau looks like. This is not the specific chateau from this wine, but just a good example. It is the largest wine producing region in France. And as I mentioned earlier, over 90% of production from this region is red. So white is a little bit more special. And most of the whites are dry. And then of course, they also make really good sweet dessert wines from Sauternes. And these are the grapes. So this is what you have in your glass. You have a Semillon based wine, so that grape on the left, that adds kind of the weight, body, and texture to the wine. A little bit of like apricot and honey aromas, and then you blend it with Sauvignon Blanc, and Sauvignon Blanc brings the acidity. Now the acidity of a wine lifts it and adds freshness. It also has a little bit of minerality and aromatics to it. And then Muscadel, which is only a small portion of this wine, that's where you get the really powerful aromatic aromas, and any floral notes will be coming from that Muscadel. So I want to hear from you guys about what you think of this wine.
It's delicious.
That's good.
In fact, it's so delicious, my wife drank up the first bottle. I had to come back to your place to buy more. And you were all out. You only had 2 bottles left. So you'd buy all the ones that you have.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've gotten them back in stock.
We did get some back in, so just let me know and we can definitely pull some for you.
It was in error. I just opened up the wine for it. It looked right.
But I do have a question though. Why is it just called Bordeaux rather than being called a Sauvignon Blanc, or kind of naming it after the grape? Is that because none of the grapes are, prominent in the wine, or?
That's a really good question. So in a lot of places in France, and you could generalize like European European wines. But specifically in France, what's more important than the grape is the region where it's from and the prestige and quality of the wine from that region. You typically, unless they're catering to an American market, you don't see the grapes on those wines because you would know that if you're drinking a Bordeaux Blanc, it's always going to be made from Semillon, Sauvignon Blanc, and Muscadel, or a blend, or it might just be Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc. And it's really not about the grape, it's just about the region. And that's why they just, it's a newer thing if you see on European wines, if they list the grapes on the back label, and that's usually the importer doing that so that Americans know. But Americans are very like, you know, domestically in California, the wine label will say like Cabernet Sauvignon, Pinot Noir, and that's what we're drawn to, versus in France, they're drawn to the terroir of a region, the climate, the soil type, the wine growing techniques in that area. That is more important than the grape. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay.
This is a nice bottle of wine, Bethany. It's a great price point. When it comes to white Bordeaux, like I've heard people say like you could buy a $100 bottle of Chardonnay, but it's not going to be the top level Chardonnay. It's going to be a mid price point. Do these tend to get really expensive?
For the Bordeaux Blanc, most of the ones we have on our shelf are in this $18 to $25 range. We do have a few that are around 100, and they're not quite as meant to be like pop and pour like this. They're made to age a little bit more. They're a little heavier, fuller bodied, not something you just kind of want to sip on. They can get pricey, but not quite as pricey as the reds from this region are like uncomparably more expensive. Unless you're talking about the sweet wine I was mentioning before, the Sauterne, those can get really, really pricey too, because they're so much more labor intensive. But I think you can get a great bottle of Bordeaux Blanc. There's no reason to spend more than like $25 if you just want something easy going with dinner. What else? Anybody else want to have any thoughts about this wine? Anything? What would you pair with it, food-wise?
Everything I'm eating right now.
Everything?
I have this whole charcuterie board in front of me, so
I found
it's
that.
all going well.
Yeah, I have this
Perfect.
honey goat cheese. That tasted really good with it.
Yeah, whoever said that, like goat cheese with honey, especially because there's like slightly honeyedness to the wine from that Semillon grape. And I think even if you had like some type of like apricot jam or anything like that with some cheese, that would be really fun too.
For white wines, does it help to like kind of let it breathe a little bit, or is that just kind of limited like reds?
No, all wine can benefit from, not all wine, most wine, including whites, can benefit from being swirled and breathing, especially Bordeaux would be one, especially if you ever drink like white Burgundy, so Chardonnay from the Burgundy region in France. Those types of wines that are really mature definitely benefit from even warming up in the glass and not being too cold and breathing a little bit. So swirl away on the whites for sure. All right, and I don't want to make anyone chug their glass, but we'll move on to the next one in like 1 more minute. I should have told you guys to pour small.
Dan's been waiting for that moment, actually. So
Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna like pour them all into one glass and kind of do a blended.
you get a fourth one, you get a rosé.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we'll move on to the Averaen Pinot if you guys want to either switch glasses or kind of start moving toward the second red. Again, that's the Averaen Pinot Noir.
That's the one from Oregon.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. No, I will drive you home.
And so I got invited this year to go to something called Oregon Pinot Camp. I've been to Oregon once before and did some wine tastings, but Pinot Camp is where they invite sommeliers from all over the country, and you're sponsored by a winery. You stay at the winery and you just learn about like Oregon soil types and microclimate and just kind of really dive deep into what makes Oregon wine taste the way it does. But of course it got canceled because it was supposed to be like in 2 weeks. So I'm so bummed. But I was like, I have to put an Oregon Pinot on here, and hopefully I'll get to go next year and I'll have tons more experience and information for you guys. Has anybody else ever been to Oregon wine tasting before in Willamette Valley?
I have.
It's beautiful, right?
It is. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
We spent a week in Walla Walla,
Oh,
and then you go over to Oregon
Well,
also.
it's right at the borderline of Washington and Oregon. So a lot of Pinots, a lot of Washington Reds also at the place. A lot of wine tasting.
There's some great wines in that region.
yeah.
They're not as trendy as California.
I personally always prefer Oregon Pinot over California. I like that it has a little bit more earthiness. So hopefully everyone's got this wine in their glass. So this is the 2018 Averaen Pinot Noir from Willamette Valley. This spends 10 months in neutral foudre, and basically what that means is it's very large oak that's been used so many times that it doesn't really impart a lot of oak flavor profile to the wine. It just naturally allows the wine to breathe and develop as it ages, but it doesn't make the wine taste really, really oaky because it's large and it has less surface contact with the wine. Neutral meaning that it's been used many times and a lot of that oak flavor has been leached out already. On this wine, I get aromas of like all the cherries, like black cherry, sour cherry, red berries, a little bit of baking spice, which does kind of come from probably a little bit from the oak with that vanilla. And then it's very juicy. This is like, I would say a little bit more juicy than some other Oregon Pinots, but I think some of it has to do with it just being like a warm vintage as well. So a little bit more plush and like red and black cherry with a little bit of blackberry and clove. And this I think would be delicious with a grilled pork chop and a black cherry sauce. Because kind of tying in the flavor notes with that sauce, and then Pinot is really good with pork. And you can also do, if you're not like a big meat eater, Pinot Noir is also really good with salmon or like a little heartier fish. And then here's beautiful Willamette Valley. So there's, they grow wine all over Oregon, but Willamette Valley is the one, the main one that is the largest wine growing region in Oregon, and 2/3 of the state's wineries. And then I don't know how old the information was I was researching, because I think it's more than 600 at this point, but there are at least 600 wineries in Willamette Valley specifically. Recognized worldwide as one of the premier producers of Pinot Noir, kind of the #1 world-renowned Pinots would be from Burgundy, France. That's what's believed to be as the birthplace of Pinot Noir. And obviously we talked about California, we talked about Sonoma, but Willamette Valley specifically is definitely up in the top ranking areas for Pinot. They grow other things there. If you ever want to try new things like white wine, they make really great dry Riesling. They make some good Chardonnay, Pinot Blanc. That Pinot is probably their top grape. And then climate-wise, for those of you who've been, it's definitely a little bit misty, cool, damp, a very long, gentle growing season. So it's not too hot, but not too cold. And that's really perfect for Pinot Noir. Pinot has thin skin. It can be really fickle, so it doesn't like a lot of sun, but it also doesn't like for it to get too cold. And it's the Willamette Valley specifically, if you've traveled around Oregon, there's many parts of Oregon, including where my sister lives, that's like arid, dry desert. So there's a mountain range that kind of goes, that actually on both sides of Willamette Valley, you've got to the left a mountain range that protects it from storms from the Pacific Ocean. And then on the other side, you've got a mountain range that kind of divides it from that really dry, arid area. So you just have like this really perfect climate for growing Pinot Noir there. And I want to go back so bad. My whole trip it was there, it wasn't like cold, but it was like a little cloudy, and it misted rain the whole week. Like didn't rain for a year. Yeah, you're shaking. Yes. And it just kind of, it was really pretty. It was like my hair was so frizzy because it was just always slightly wet. But yeah, it was beautiful. I would love to go back. So talking about Pinot Noir, which is the grape we're drinking now, primary flavors, and a lot of these are exhibited in this wine, red fruited, like cherry raspberry notes. You can also get a little bit of earthiness. You can sometimes get mushroom, forest floor, especially if you're thinking about your more Burgundian Pinots, you will have more pronounced earthiness. And then you can also get some of those baking spice, clove, cinnamon notes. Classic characteristics, Pinot's typically dry. It's lighter bodied because it has thinner skins. It's low tannins, and for those of you who aren't as familiar with the structure of wine, so tannins come from the skins and the seeds, and that's the astringency factor of a grape, and that's what makes your mouth dry out. So you can have a wine with really low tannins like Pinot Noir, or for an example, Syrah, Cabernet Sauvignon, those wines have really high tannins. And then Pinot typically has medium plus to sometimes high acidity. That's another structural component of wine. So you've got like your tannins, your acidity, your alcohol, the body texture of the wine, and all wines have acidity. It's just a matter of how high or how low. Acidity is the part of the wine that makes your mouth water or pucker, and you kind of feel it back in your jaw right here. And if you feel that like crazy, like that, that means a wine is high in acid. And if you kind of feel it a little bit, you know, more medium bodied, or if you don't really feel it at all, you would say it has low acid. But a classic Pinot Noir would have low tannins, mean less astringent, and higher acidity. And they can range from fruity to earthy. Just again, for comparison, we were discussing like your California Pinots are usually a little bit more fruit forward. They're not going to have quite as much acidity because it's a lot of sun, more warm weather there. And then Burgundy or even Oregon will have a little bit more earthiness, a little bit higher acid because of the acidity. So again, acid makes your mouth water. That's why Pinot Noir is extremely versatile food pairing wise. It's a very safe bet. So anytime you go to a restaurant and you have a bunch of people at your table, some people are eating fish, some people are eating pork, it's always the go-to if you need to buy a bottle of wine for, it's weird to say go to a restaurant because who's done that in a long time. But you know, like when we go back to restaurants or if you're having people over, Pinot Noir is a really good wine to kind of like please the crowd, to please all different food pairings. Pinot's made all over the world. It's one of those grapes that's just kind of really taken off, even though it is not that easy to grow. Top producers, France, US, and Germany, where it is known as Spätburgunder. And but again, it's grown everywhere. Those are the top three all over the world. Australia does some, and even New Zealand has really great Pinot. And we have one on the shelf from Canada, so I guess they can thank global warming for that, but it's a really, really good Pinot that's not sweet. All right, so tell me what you think before we go to the next one. What do you guys think of this wine?
I think it's really easy to drink. Very, very easy because of a lot of things.
Yeah, I think it's really great. Thanks for introducing it to us. One question we have is on the back of the label, it talks about barrels and it has names. Can you talk about that a little bit?
What does it say?
It says barrels and it says Ramon,
yes,
Damie, Cavan, and Stokinger.
So I don't know those particular ones, but what they are referring to is when you, as a winemaker, when you choose the barrels you buy, you have a lot of choices. You have the size of the barrel, so more surface contact to the wine obviously imparts more oak flavor. You've got the type of oak, French, American, Slovenian, Acacia, there's a large list. But what they're talking about is like a cooperage or somebody who makes their barrels has a reputation of, maybe the best cooperage for this or for that. So they're just referencing where they bought their barrels. Does that make sense? Most people don't do that. So I think they're just
unusual. I don't know that we've seen it before. Is that a Oregon thing or just this winery?
No, I unless it's like some new trend I'm not aware of, I think it is not typical, and I think maybe they're just, I don't know, either trying to stand out or maybe I'm not quite sure why they put that on the label, but that's what it is.
Thanks.
I couldn't tell you anything specifically about them. What else? You guys like this wine? Yes? No?
I like it.
Good.
I like
Just
the first one better,
Yeah, it's really good.
okay.
but that's just me being an unsophisticated wine drinker.
No, that's there's no such thing. You just need to drink more wine.
We can do that.
And don't be afraid to jump in and ask questions and say anything. A lot of people are always scared, you know, giving their input, but sometimes it's really refreshing to talk to people who don't know a ton about wine, because sommeliers tend to like overanalyze and overdescribe everything.
I don't
And
know.
it's really nice to just, you know.
So I don't know much at all. Not the wine game. I just drink, and it's all good to me. I know you don't have Cabernet here.
Yep.
So what kind of distinction would you make between that and the Pinot?
You know, okay. So grape-wise, Pinot is going to be very low in tannins. So tannins are that astringency factor, and Cabernet is going to be high. They're almost the opposite with like their structure. So Cabernet is full-bodied. It has medium plus to high tannins, but lower acidity. And Pinot Noir will be the opposite. So Pinot Noir is one of the lightest bodied wines you can have. It's typically see-through if you hold it over something and try to read through it. More red fruit driven, where Cabernet is more dark black fruit driven, Cassis, blackberry. It's more full and round. So structurally, they're very different grapes.
Mm-hmm. So Pinot, you made sound very universal as far as. What about Cabernet?
I wouldn't say that they're not nearly as versatile food pairing wise, just because they're usually too tannic and too full bodied to do with any type of seafood or fish, or even light white meats. Be a little too heavy.
More of a steak.
Yep. Yeah, definitely more of a steak wine. And I've had some light and fruity cabs, but typically they are a fuller bodied wine. If you like your cabs, you'll like the third wine, that Spanish red.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely for the cab drinkers.
So I don't like red at all, but I do like Pinot Noir, and I really like this Pinot Noir. I think it's the tannins, less tannins maybe.
That's probably it. Yeah, Pinot Noir is a gateway red for white wine drinkers, because you can drink it with a chill on it. You don't have to have food, and it's very low in tannins and just really smooth.
We're doing gateway drugs.
Yeah.
For GAPABA.
I like it.
Whenever you guys are ready, if you want to go ahead and pour the third red, so that's the only one you haven't poured yet, but the Spanish Priorat, and we're going to move on to that one in just a second.
Bethany, how's business been for you locally? They always say when we're going through this that people drink more and consume more alcohol. Have you felt that with your business?
100%. And so when everything first shut down, we kind of made this master plan where a lot of us would like work from home and work on content, and just we were kind of brainstorming how to keep busy, and we had zero time for that. We were slammed from the second we opened to the moment we closed, with people calling in the very beginning and ordering cases and cases of wine. And then we kind of got a handle on, I think we all, like, just in general, like we all were trying to learn how to survive with being quarantined, and we moved to curbside pickup. And yeah, we had a lot of new customers that had never shopped with us before. And I think one of the biggest things, like you said, is people were drinking more because they either weren't working, but also since restaurants and bars were closed, we were getting all of that business too. because people couldn't go anywhere, so they were coming in and buying bottles of wine. Now that things are reopening, we've kind of settled back to a little bit of some slight normalcy, I think. But every week is different.
So, I would also say, I think you all have done a great job. I mean, till this thing happened, I didn't know Perrine's at all. You think have done a great job in web presence. We did a blind wine tasting 2 weekends ago.
Yeah.
Which was really good. So, you know, I mean, you've done a great job, you know, keeping the momentum going and giving folks something to do and look forward to.
Good. Thank you for saying that. That was our goal, is that we were like, well, we're selling wine, but we miss people, you know, like we didn't want to just be a warehouse. We still wanted to talk to everyone. And our favorite thing is teaching, and, you know, customers would typically come in the shop and ask us questions and browse around, and we missed that. So thank you. We love connecting with everyone. Do you all have the third wine poured, your Priorat?
Just go get people on this room.
For the cab drinkers? I'm still on the white. All right. So let's move this guy. There we go. All right, so this is the Cesca Vicent. It is a red blend from Priorat, Spain. So down in the right corner here, you can see a little kind of simple map of Spain. And this is the region. It's located just south of Barcelona. This particular wine is aged 12 months in French oak barrels. They didn't specify on how much was new or used, but I definitely suspect that there's some new oak on this. Aromas of blackcurrant, red plum. This wine is super velvety. It's fuller bodied. It definitely has some of those higher tannins we talked about, but not like overly aggressive, just really smooth and silky tannins with flavors of blueberry jam, ripe plum, and berries. And then with this, if I can move this out of the way, I think it would go really, really well with beef brisket, because it's a good fuller bodied wine, and you want something like nice and rich and lush with that beef brisket. And then, so this is the region. I actually haven't been to this part of Spain before, but I've heard it's just really like rugged and beautiful. Have any of you ever been here, Priorat?
Never.
No, it's just south of Barcelona. It's kind of a small region. You know, a lot of people, when they talk about Spanish wine, they're thinking about Rioja and some of those more famous regions. And a lot of people have never heard of Priorat before, although you may have had some of their wines. They're known worldwide for powerful reds. I have had one white Priorat before in my life, and that's the only one I've ever had. So it's definitely, I don't know what percent, but very large majority of reds. And the most of their vines there are planted to Garnacha, which is the same grape as Grenache, or Carignana, also known as Carignan. There's actually several names for both of those grapes, but those are the two most well-known. And then other important grapes that are included in this blend: Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and Syrah. But Garnacha and Carignana are the two main grapes. Most wines from Priorat are going to be a blend with one of those, if not both, as the base. Doesn't that look like a fun place to visit? It's so pretty. So it's very rugged. It's very hot. Did I put that on here? Oh yeah, Mediterranean climate, lots of sun. And then flavor profile wise of Priorat, they are typically like really berry, like lush, you know, kind of jammy, chewy, plummy, powerful, luscious. You could almost kind of describe it as like creamy and mouth coating. So the blend wise, Garnacha adds like those juicy strawberry, raspberry jam, blackberry, and a little bit of licorice. And then the Carignana gives it the acidity, because we talked about all wine has acid. And so with a wine that's dense and heavy, you have to have a grape that has a little bit more lift, that acidity that makes your mouth water, otherwise it's a little too heavy. And that can also give a little bit of a baking spice notes, and smoked meat are kind of bacony sometimes with a little bit of cranberry. And then on the right here, this is what makes the region so special. This Licorella soil, it's a black slate that's, as far as I know, only in this region. So it helps retain heat, and then it gives the wine, you can almost taste that soil in the wine. It gives like a black stone minerality to it.
Is it named after licorice? Or
No,
the same word?
no, I don't think it is. I think that's just a coincidence.
Barrel coincidence.
And I've never heard a Spanish person pronounce it before, so I'm not quite sure if that's how you say it. Yeah, it may be. I'm sure it's much fancier than I'm saying it, but yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with that. But I could be wrong. I've never read anything like about the origin of the name. I just know that that soil is what makes that region so so special. All right, so those of you who said you like your cabs, what do you think of this wine? I think that's it.
More cabby.
Huh?
More cabby.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop sharing. There we go. And go back so we can just chat.
Well, it's a very smooth tannin, actually. It's not like something where it makes my tongue curl.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so tannins you can get, like I said, from the skins and the seeds of a grape, so it just naturally occurs in the wine. You can also get tannins from oak. Oak tannins are smoother and rounder on your mouth, and the grape tannins are a little bit more harsh. It's hard to really differentiate, but as long as you have a good balance, then I think this wine it's got really good tannins, but like you said, it's also really smooth. It's not aggressive.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, these people are on, but they're
Hello.
Yeah, but Bethany, can you go back to the what? This was a blend, right? It's not a cab.
It is a blend of Grenache, Cab, Merlot. Hold on.
Yeah, what was the last grape? I never heard of the last grape.
It is Grenache, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, Syrah, Samso. That is a very random indigenous varietal.
Okay. So what do you think about blends? I guess as a sommelier, your opinion on blends as opposed to 80% cab. I mean, this is not a cab. This is a blend all the way.
Correct. So, okay, remember the with the white Bordeaux and with this last wine, they're both blends, and I had the pictures of the grapes on each slide and told you what they add to the blend. So if you have one wine that's just 100% Pinot Noir, that's just what you get. You get what that grape gives you. So when you have a blend of something, you have more options to create the type of wine you want to drink. So you have one grape that adds body, one grape that adds acidity, one grape that adds this flavor, another grape that adds that flavor. So you can have a more complex wine. And, you know, if one grape is a little bit too acidic, you can blend it with something else with less acid. So you have a little bit more control over what the final product is going to taste like. And you can't make blends everywhere. There's some regions that don't allow you to blend. It has to be one varietal. So regionally, will have a little bit, or have a lot of effect on what you can and cannot blend together. But that's the idea with a blend, is that you can create a you know, the perfect wine, or exactly what your flavor profile you're going for. As opinion wise, I like them both. I don't think a blend is better or worse than a single varietal wine. And a lot of winemakers will sometimes even like grow all the grapes together, and you might have a wine that just says like proprietary blend, or they don't know that it's a percentage of this or that. You know, they might co-ferment all the grapes together and just pick them all together and put them all in the same bucket. And you know, where this wine is like, they have a vineyard of Cab, they have a vineyard of Grenache, they vinify separately and then blend at the end to create the flavors they would like. That makes sense? Does that answer your question?
Question. So if we go to your store, what questions are you going to ask us to kind of figure out the kind of wine we want? Like, so, you know, so if we were going to your store, wanted to kind of have information ahead of time, what questions do you ask kind of your customers?
That's a really good question. So if somebody comes in the shop, which you're not allowed to do yet, so you'll ask me these questions over the phone. I mean, white or red is a good start, you know, and sometimes you want both. From there, price point dictates a lot. So price range, you know, are you having a special occasion and you want to spend $100 on a bottle? Is it something you're just, you know, sipping by the pool? Is your budget 15 to 20? So that helps me zero in. But then flavor profile wise, I start with the structure of the wine. So do you want something light bodied, medium bodied, or fuller bodied? And to give you an example, Pinot Noir is light bodied. Cabernet is medium plus to full bodied. If you want something in the middle, like Pinot's too light, Cab might be a little bit too full. You want something more like a Merlot or a blend, then I would start there. So then you kind of start to narrow down the body of the wine. And then the next question would be, do you want a wine that's fruit forward? So if we're looking at a Pinot, if we're looking at something light bodied, do you want it fruit forward or mineral driven / earthy? And that will tell me what region of the wall to go to. If you want something that's fruit forward, we're going to look at domestic, we're going to look at New World, and we're going to look at warm regions. And if you want something more earthy and mineral driven, then we'll go over to the European wall and look at cooler climate wines, maybe something from France. And that usually helps me narrow it down.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for spicy food or Asian food, what types of wines would you recommend?
Depending on the spice level, even if you don't typically like sweet wine, a wine that is off dry, meaning not sweet, but you've got a scale of dry and sweet, and then you've got like off dry, means it has a little bit of sweetness. It's surprisingly refreshing to do. I mean, you could do like an off-dry Riesling. You could do like a riper off-dry Chenin Blanc, or a blend of those. Gewürztraminer is a really good wine with spicy food. And then it again, like I don't typically drink sweet wine, but if I'm doing something really spicy, you'd be amazed at how refreshing that is when your mouth is on fire and your face is red and you take a sip of something that has a little sweetness to it. You don't want anything tannic. So if you just have to do a red, like you will not drink white wine, I would recommend Beaujolais. Is the region, and the grape is called Gamay, and it's very, very low tannin. Sometimes they can even be lighter than Pinot. They're super fruity without being sweet, and you put a nice chill on it, and that's really good with spicy food.
And so there's like spicy, like, you know, red pepper spicy, but there's also like, you know, curries for South Asian Indian food. Mm-hmm. Would you say there's like a difference in wines you would recommend for something that has, you know, the cumin or the curry flavors?
So spicy aromatic spices would not heat spice, right?
Yes, exactly.
You could try to match that in a wine. Gewürztraminer would still work because that actually has some good spice to it's a white wine, but it has some natural spice to it. You could also look at something, it would again depend on the dish. You mentioned like some green pepper, and anything that's like herbaceous is really good with Sauvignon Blanc because that wine has some like herbaceous green pepper notes to it. But for the curries and things like that, I still think a lot of the same rules apply. I wouldn't do anything tannic and overpowering. And I think it would also maybe depend on if you were going to have meat in the dish or not, because you could do still like, especially if you were doing like a curry dish with some meat in, and I still think Beaujolais would be a great option.
Mike? I have a question. I guess when you talk about good years and points, how do you define a good year for wine? And then how does the point system work, and how much can we rely on that? You know, when we go wine shopping and we see a point number, How should we use that number to help us select a wine as like total newbies to this?
Yeah. I'll tackle the point question first, because we personally don't ever, I would say not ever, but we don't post points in our shop. The point system is like anyone could do it. I could decide to start a newsletter and I could rank anything, and it would just say like, Bethany Taylor gave this wine 90 points. So the point system really relies on how much you trust the person giving the points. Because literally anyone, that's like saying like award-winning food, and it's like, okay, it won an award once. Well, you know. So, you know, you've got like Robert Parker, you've got Wine Spectator, you've got all of these people or organizations that give points. And I would just say that you would want to watch for points if it's important to you, to someone that you align with their opinion. You know, the same thing with like, you know, sometimes I get a movie recommendation from a friend and I'm like, I like that person, but I'm like, your taste in movies sucks. Like, that movie was terrible. So you could drink a wine that has 100 points and you don't like it. Does that make sense about points? So I don't focus on them here. I don't ever memorize them. I don't use them to sell wine unless it's something that I know personally, okay, this person gave it 100 points. I really trust them. But in general, we don't use them. I think that we hand sell here. So if you're going to a big box store, that's an easy way to get people. They're like, oh, look, this got 95. So I don't put too much stock in that. If you're just reading a little tag at a store, I wouldn't really put any trust in that unless you know who it's from. Okay, and then you asked about vintage. So vintage is a little bit of an opinion about just if you like certain vintages or not, and not all wines are extremely affected by vintage. It's really the wines that are meant to age. But what makes a good vintage? We've talked a little bit about acidity of the wine. We've talked about tannins, kind of the structure of the wine. All wines have acid, all wines have alcohol. You know, you talk about tannins more with reds than whites, but the structure of the wine needs to be balanced. And if you have a really, really hot year, the grape is going to be higher in sugar because it stays, you know, it's warmer. That happens to any fruit. And then therefore that sugar in the grape converts to alcohol. So you in a really, really warm year, the alcohol in that wine might be higher. If you have a really, really cold year, you might have like high in acid. You also have to think about rain. And, you know, if the vine's got like too much water, because vines typically produce better fruit when they're not overwatered. So climate, weather has a lot to do, or has everything to do with the vintage and how the wine tastes. And it also dictates how the wine can be aged. For example, in Burgundy, France, where like Pinot Noir, 2015 was really warm. Those wines are more approachable younger because they're not as high in acid. And then like 14 and 16 was a little bit cooler. And so you've got higher acidity. And then there's always an argument where like, I actually prefer 14 and other people prefer 15. So some of it's a preference. But there are, I would just say in general, certain vintages that are known as better years because they were like the perfect ideal climate for growing those grapes. And then there's other vintages that are bad. And I mean, sometimes it comes down to the producer and the choices they make. Like maybe they picked right before a hailstorm that knocked somebody else's crop out. So some of it has to do with the producer, but it's really like vintage depends on the weather that year. And that's why you have certain vintages that are just like way more expensive than others because they're made to age longer. I would say in general, year to year, most people won't notice a vintage change in your like everyday table wine.
How do you know when a wine has gone bad?
And that's different depending on the grape and the region, but it will taste like vinegar. just not good anymore.
So Bethany, there was a question on the group chat.
Oh, I wasn't watching the chat. Okay.
So I think a bunch of us are lawyers, probably all of us are lawyers. And they said, would you be willing to ship wines to our clients if we hosted a Zoom wine tasting for our clients? We are all lawyers, and we'd love to do something similar as we open each bottle. And then we internally had talked about it, but what is your kind of your?
It's against Georgia law for us to ship. Unfortunately.
Clients are in Atlanta or close to Midtown. This is certainly a great option. I think I've internally, we're going to do another wine tasting probably for our litigation department, and we're probably going to get Perrine's to do it as well. So you have clients in Atlanta, you know, from Delta or like Newell, certainly that's an option.
You know, if you're not, if you have clients in another city, again, we can't ship. It's against Georgia law. We can't deliver or do anything. A few options, you could try to find a local shop in that area that has the same or similar wines, or yeah, I mean, that's kind of the only thing. And if someone wanted to join, we could just do a general class, like everyone grab an Oregon Pinot, everyone grab a Napa Cab, everyone grab it, and focus more just on like the region and the grapes, and that would be an easy way to include everyone. It doesn't have to be the same producer.
Sure. Hey Dan, what did you say you guys are doing?
So we're going to do one with Perrine's because we're all based in Atlanta, so we're going to do the same thing. Get 3 bottles.
Oh, pick it up. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so I did Vine Box yesterday, and it was fine. The problem with that is we didn't have Bethany to kind of lead us through the tasting. You had Dan Wynn, and which is certainly a poor man's version of Bethany. And so it wasn't as fun, it wasn't as interesting, and I didn't learn as much. And certainly no one else learned as much. So I think going local and going with somebody that actually knows the wines and picking the wines goes a long way.
I also had a wine tasting the other night, Dan, where they delivered Murray's cheese to all of us. And that might be a really nice addition to the wine, depending on your budget.
I think Perrine's offers wine as well.
Yeah, we have, I've got another tasting next week, and it's like a company doing something for their clients, and I'm doing meat, cheese, and crackers for each person as well. But and it everyone's different. If there's, if you're still, any of you still going into an office, some people can, just one person picks up and brings it to the office, and then everyone can grab theirs. But I know everyone's like slowly opening up differently. But we're willing to.
We had one where we just picked up cheese from like a local cheese store. And so they just told everybody to go pick up their own cheese plates, and that was kind of nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we do. We have a lot of artisan cheeses here too. So if you ever need to help, we'd be happy to help.
So let me make sure I understand. You can ship locally, or you can have courier them locally. You can't just ship them out of state?
We can't ship or deliver anything. Nothing.
Even with a courier who picks them up and drops them off locally?
Now, if you want to hire a courier, you can, but we can't even set it up or call.
Okay. So Dan, that's your answer. I mean, they can get delivered locally, because I've had wines delivered locally to clients and other people, where a courier comes, picks them up, and drops them off.
Yeah, because if you hire a courier, that's on you, but we legally can't have anything to do with that. So yes.
I'll say I recently used Rody.
Hold on. You were going a little bit out, Stephanie.
We can't hear you.
Oh.
I think we can now.
I was saying I used Rody as a courier service recently, and it was really reasonable and really efficient too. It works just like Uber.
Yeah, we have a lot of customers who use Rody.
Well, do we have any other questions for Bethany? Otherwise, we could let her.
So I do have 2 questions for Bethany.
Dan, this was a big mistake letting outsiders in, okay?
Let him in. You let him in.
What you got?
So question number one is, for places that you have not been to, like the last wine that we drank,
Mm-hmm.
how do you recommend, or kind of say let's do that for tasting or know more about the wine? But question number two, which is probably far more prominent, is what do you think of Georgia wines as a sommelier?
Like state or the country?
Dahlonega.
Our Georgia, Dahlonega,
Okay.
Wolf Creek, and Monteluce, and all the others that are out there.
Hold on, I already forgot what you asked me first. What did you ask me? What was the first question?
You can ignore my question one. Let's just focus on Wolf Creek and Monteluce and all the places that are up an hour away from us.
I have been to most of them. I think the best is Tiger Mountain Vineyards. Have you been there?
No, we've been to Wolf Creek and to Monteluce, and their wines are crap, but the places are nice.
It's beautiful, and I like the idea of supporting Georgia farmers, but I think that Tiger Mountain makes some of the only wine in Georgia that I think is like really, really good. They grow their own grapes, they make their own wine. A lot of places, like in general, I would caution you against something like Chateau Ducasse. They don't grow any of their own grapes, and the wine is not that great either. But in general, I think that if you know a little history about Georgia winemaking, is that this was one of the first places vines were ever grown. Back when we had the colonies, way before anyone even lived, colonized like the West Coast. But during Prohibition, all the vines were ripped up in Georgia. So they've had to start all over, versus a lot of other places have a little bit longer winemaking history because they didn't start all over during Prohibition. And I think after that, on top of that, the Georgia clay is really hard to grow grapes in, and people in the South like sweet wine, so they cater to their market. I grew up in North Georgia, and muscadine wine and the sweet stuff is what they want. So if those vineyards were to grow really classic dry wine, nobody would drink it. So there's a little bit of a, I drink Tiger Mountain wines, and that's really the only stuff that we put on our shelf from the state of Georgia.
Okay. And could you tell us a little bit more about Perrine's? I'd never heard of this till this whole coronavirus happened.
Yeah. So Perrine started the shop. Perrine is the owner. The namesake, and she is French. She's from the region of Burgundy. And I can't remember exactly which year she moved to the US, but she started very young in her wine studies. She actually went to school at probably about age 16, specifically to study wine and food and the hospitality industry, and won a prestigious award in Bordeaux when she was probably about 18 or 19 for like one of the best youngest sommeliers. Was invited to Atlanta to work at Joel. For those of you who've been around Atlanta for a long time, it's not open anymore, but she was invited to be a sommelier at that restaurant. And I guess when it closed down, she, or maybe probably before it closed down, she opened this shop in, what year is it? 2010? 2009? Is it 2000? Wait, it's 2020. She opened it in 2010. This shop. So it's been here for 10 years, and we, on a non-pandemic era, we host wine tastings and private events and educational classes, and have been in the same location the entire time for 10 years. And there's a team of 4 of us, and everyone that has worked here for the last several years, I've been here for a little over 4, is either a level 1 or level 2 sommelier. So definitely a place you can come and grill us with fun questions about wine.
Bethany, my partner wasn't able to join us. He's still working on another Zoom call in the bedroom. So I have all this wine. What is your like best advice as to a store wine if you've only drinking a half a bottle, and how long can it stay intact? It's
okay. So yeah, the white will last a little bit longer than the red, but in general, I keep my red wines in the fridge once I open them, and then just bring them out like 15, 20 minutes before you want to drink them. We have certain things here in the shop, like wine preservers, that you like the little corks that you can pump the air out of. And we have a little machine called the Coravon that you can actually extract the wine out of the cork without opening it. So those are things for future reference. But in the meantime, I would just put everything in the fridge. And white could, last 4 or 5 days in the fridge. The reds I'd drink within the next 2-3 days. If you're drinking wines that are super biodynamic, organic, they don't have any preservatives at all, those need to be consumed within the day you open them, but these wines should be fine. Not that they have like anything in them, but they're just not quite as like funky as the really, really natural stuff, so.
Okay, last question for me. Sorry, you're so knowledgeable. So in our homes here in Georgia, we have a lot of crawl spaces underneath or closets off the garage that stay pretty cool throughout the year. Have you ever had one of your wine customers build something in there so that they're not buying a plug-in electric wine fridge? Or they've been able to create a wine cellar in that space in their house?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I guess the only thing I would say is that I would want to be certain if you were going to start collecting wine that it did stay, even if it stays cool, you really kind of want it to maintain a consistent temperature. So if it got really cold in the winter, even that would be bad for the wine too. So that's something to think about. But I don't know specifically of any like cellars being built there. Sorry.
Well, thanks, Bethany. I really appreciate you today.
Yeah.
So I did hit record on the cloud. So I just sort of wanted to know, I guess for everybody participating on this call, would you prefer not to broadcast this, or would you be okay with sharing this with GAPABA?
You can share it.
Oh,
All we're doing is drinking at night.
Fine.
Fine.
Fine with us.
We'll do whatever Anu wants to do.
Anu's drinking water. I haven't even started on the time. I'm safe.
Tell us about the water, Anu.
I'm safe, yeah.
Bonnie, you're still a co-host, right? So I can leave the meeting and I won't cut you off, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. This was really fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
wine.
I'll put my email address in the chat, and if you guys ever have any questions or want me to order any wine for you, just reach out and I'll be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey.